the Heroes of Might and Magic 5 creatures tier list that I did a while ago. It is going to be in the top right of your screen, probably already happened or is right now. So feel free to go check that out and let me know what you guys think. But today we are doing the towns since I never did that. But this was definitely my favorite Heroes of Might and Magic game for sure, is 5. 3 is definitely second for sure, but 5 was just too good, man. It was beautifully done, lots of creatures, lots of tiers, and obviously the graphics were much better than 3, but can't blame there. So, let's get started. I'm going to start with Academy. We'll just kind of go in order, I guess. And I'm going to put Academy in B. I would say the biggest reason why it's not any more or any less is Academy is probably only in B because it has so much magic resistance for everyone. That's huge in this game, obviously, due to spells and everything. But the biggest reason why it's not higher is, honestly, everybody is super weak in the high tiers. The Rakshas are very weak, and honestly, they've never felt like they did enough damage for being such a high tier. And same with the Djinns. They definitely do a good amount of damage, and being able to do spells is nice as well. But they're very weak as well, so it's mostly just if you can get to the Titans or Colossus, whichever. But then also the mages are definitely your carry, but you have to obviously watch out for them because they can damage your own units. So Academy is basically sitting here because of magic resistance and not much else. I definitely can't really warrant putting it any higher. Inferno. I'll give Inferno the nod to A, but it's definitely like an A minus to me. I feel like all of their units are pretty weak, but they definitely do a high amount of damage, and definitely gating with Inferno is the way to go. Just having more units on the field that your opponent essentially has to kill. Obviously, if they kill all of your normal creatures, then I believe you end up losing anyway. But just having those extra units out there, now it does waste a turn and then take a turn to get them out, but still, if you can survive long enough, which more than likely you will, it's solid. But I would say that their units, like the imps, are obviously weak, but the taking away mana is huge, especially with, spell heavy teams that you're facing. And even if not, just not allowing them to use any is awesome. The Succuba, or Succubus, sorry, I've always called it Succuba, I don't know why. The Succubus is definitely a high damage unit, and then the Pit Fiend is insane as well. But other than that, like, the Cerberus is weak but does a lot of damage. The Horned Demon is a decent tier 2 tank, but you know how that goes late game. And then the Hell Charger is nice, but nothing too crazy. So definitely as a town, it can be good. You just have to kind of play it right, get the right heroes, and definitely make sure you have enough sulfur because they're always working on it. And the academy is pretty easy to build with, I would say, as long as you have Mercury. But now dungeon, I have to put down in C. Now, a lot of people are probably going to hate me for that because I think it's probably going to be the worst town in Heroes 5 for sure, at least for me. Now, while you might hate me, I truly do. I have always loved dungeon. I love a ton of the creatures. I love playing with them because they are very good. The problem is that their creature count is the lowest in the game by a pretty significant amount. Um, Even if you upgrade, the castle and everything to have increased creature growth, it's still, I think, at max um, like level, you still have about the same as like a normal town would just normally, or maybe like first tier buy. So you definitely, the later the game goes, you see and feel that you have less units. And a lot of your carry units are weak. Your Blood Maidens, while they're so good, they're easy to kill because they have very little defense. Your Minotaurs are good, but take a while to get there. Your Hydras are definitely your later game carry as well, and they're tough. They're a solid unit for sure. But all of these creature growth in the back just really hurt essentially the entire game. Um, and that's why they have to be in C. I love Dungeon. I love a ton of their creatures. I love playing with them, but overall as a town, it's just weak. Um, Creatures not so much necessarily, but when you need a big army, it's hard to get that with Dungeon um, consistently. Haven, I'm gonna put an A as well. And the biggest reason I'm putting Haven an A is because I would say Haven is probably, of all the towns, the most consistent as far as how the tiers of creatures go and how they become stronger. So, early game, they're decent, and the later the game goes and the more, high tier units they have, the better they are. The Angels are obviously great. The Cavaliers are disgusting. The Priests, if you have enough of them, do a high amount of damage and are tough as shit. Um, Griffins are inconsistent, but it makes the enemy team, have to move if they know that you're diving them, or just don't and take the hit, but it doesn't do a lot of damage either way. The Squires are definitely tough, solid tier 3. The crossbowmen are good. The peasants not so much, but you'll have a million of them, and they give you gold, which kind of helps. But I would say Haven's also a pretty easy town to like start with and build with and learn the game, because it's not very difficult to essentially buy or build a full town. Um, it's not too bad to do. I would say I've never really ran into like big trouble having enough resources to do that with Haven. Other castles, yes, but not really Haven. Fortress. Oh. Fortress, I think I have to put in B. I think it's very similar to Haven as far as the later the game goes, the better they get. But early game, they just do not have a lot of damage at all, really. Um, you know, Early to mid game is where I think they struggle. And as far as like a town itself, it doesn't really give you that umph. Now, when you're defending your town, they do give you, free, um, defensive people, which is great. I think that's a huge thing, and I might like warrant putting them in A, but it's definitely like an A minus area. And I would say definitely a B plus area for them, being in here, but they've never felt super strong. And their runes and everything have never really I felt made a huge difference for the castle or for the team. Um, and that goes with back to Academy, them being able to build artifacts or whatever you can put on your people. It's never felt like it really made a difference. And maybe that's just me, but you know, I've never felt super strong with Fortress until late game. Once I get some high tier units, you know, once I get that Rune Priest and the Thane and everything, then it starts, you know, doing really well. But to get to that point is just they're pretty just heavily defense and not attack until higher tier units. So that's usually how I like to play. I feel like I'm more of a defensive player than offensive, but they've never felt great to me. Stronghold. I would say Stronghold is just a solid A. I don't really think anything pushes them to S tier. Um, and sacrificing doesn't really, well, I guess that's dungeon technically sacrificing, which that really doesn't help recruitment either. It could if you had enough people, but not really. And same for Stronghold, but Stronghold creatures are definitely strong. You take out the goblins who are first, and pretty much everybody past that point is pretty solid. Centaurs are great. The warriors are great. The shamans are iffy, but overall they're just a solid unit. You know, pretty decent amount of attack, and they can use spells obviously, and then they have a decent amount of defense. The chieftains are awesome. The wyverns, not so much. I've never liked them. Same with the cyclops. They're just, I've never been impressed by either one of those two creatures. But overall, as a team and getting more bloodlust, and some of the spells that they have are pretty nice. And I would also say that they're not too difficult to build as a castle. Um, a little bit of inconsistency here and there, but you're gonna easily win a lot of fights basically throughout the game, especially against, you know, just the mines and, you know, normal um, NPC or AI around the map for sure, no matter what map it is. So they're definitely a very solid just team in general. Sylvan, Sylvan, I think. Oh, this is hard. Man, that's hard. Alright, I'm gonna have to put Sylvan in S. I was thinking A, and A is definitely the minimum, because it would easily be A+. But Sylvan is just such a damaging team. Now, while I would say their first two units are weak, that's just kind of normal. You know, obviously some of the other towns, castles, whatever you'd like to call them, their, you know, first or second unit are kind of tanky or tough or pretty defensive. But you know, the sprites are okay, kind of, for tier 1. The Blade Dancer can be deadly. And then once you get into the Hunters, those are insane. One of the best creatures I'd say in the game. Definitely one of the top. Druids as well, just the amount of damage they can dish out. Unicorns are definitely a nice tanky mid-tier unit. And then Trents are obviously very tanky. They don't do a whole lot of damage, but being able to also stop somebody in place, you can definitely slow a bunch of people coming towards your backline unit and then just pick them off slowly but surely. The Green Dragon is decent, not super of an impressive one, but obviously still, you know, high tier unit, tier 7, so, or is it tier 7? But still very, very good. Um, just they're gonna dish out a ton of damage. That's even without spells. I mean, the druids have spells with lightning strike, obviously, but you know they can still dish out some damage, and they're pretty tough for, you know, a backline unit. Um, So yeah, I have to give the nod to them because their whole castle is pretty easy to build around. I would say they do kind of struggle here and there. The later the game goes to upgrade the town or castle, unless you know, are out there getting all the mines and stuff. But as far as creatures and growth and all of that, they're definitely uh, one of the best for sure. Now, my very first and most favorite town or castle is Necropolis, and it might be a little, you know, just because I love them, but I would have to say they're S tier. Now, non-upgraded units, not so much. Once you get this town upgraded to tier 2 or 3, whichever you choose, or both, it's just one of the best. No matter what hero you choose, it's very solid, whether you're spawning ghosts, whether you're the zombie lord or vampire, queen, princess, whatever. Um, it just, it has always felt solid. You get an archer to start, basically. You get a zombie, which is hard to kill, and depending on which one you choose, weakens whoever he's hitting over and over again. Vampire, well, we'll say Ghost third because that's who is third, is one of the scarier units in the game to me because you never know when you're going to miss, and if you're attacking with one of your carries or top damaging creatures and you miss, then that's just a wasted turn. Um, and they do a decent amount of damage. The vampires being able to essentially heal itself from almost the entire um, all the creatures in the game virtually, except other undead and a couple other creatures here and there, is disgusting. And then you add in the leech, which is a little iffy, not necessarily the best. They're definitely better if you are facing a backline team that's kind of grouped up, for sure. Can do a little bit of a good amount of spread damage. The whites are definitely just a solid choice, nothing crazy or fancy, but they'll definitely hold it down. The Bone Dragon is, I've never really enjoyed it so much. I like a lot of other um, top tier creatures instead of the Bone Dragon, but I think as far as building, recruitment, and then being able to summon even more creatures at the end of a fight, that's huge as well. Definitely an insane choice there. Um, so yeah, I have to put Necropolis in S tier. It's so easy to scale with them. I don't think that there's necessarily a bad unit on their team, like some of the other towns have. But yeah, that is where I would place them. So let me know what you guys think, where you guys would place um, your favorite towns or least favorite and whatnot. Let me know what you guys think. Check out that Heroes 5 creature tier list as well that I have up. And we will see you guys in the next one.